drop in where you're tuning in from. If you have a business, I'd love to look at it, even if I can't look at it now. But we are going to get started on our training now. And, training, the word, right? It's the last, I get it. It is the last session of your very busy day, I'm sure. And it's Halloween and it's a Friday. Like I got you. So we're gonna have just some, like, I want you guys to really walk away inspired. We're gonna do a little workshopping. I'm gonna chat with you a little bit, but I really just want you to walk away inspired, walking away, know how to implement a business with profit and compassion, because I know how difficult that can feel, and I love to know that who's in the room right now. So very, very cool. Okay. And before I get into this, I just want to say Deborah would also love to network, so definitely check out her out. Melissa says she's calling from Tucson, Arizona, and her business is Melissa Loves Writing. Love it. So look at, save that chat, because sometimes as you're writing, we all know this can feel very like isolated in silos. And you might be like, oh my gosh, I'm right around the corner from Tucson. Like that would be great to like connect with somebody. So dude, this is a great place to even just get that takeaway with that. Okay, so I'm going to get off that part of it, and loving all of this. I'm going to shut that down. Okay, I'm going to keep the chat a little bit open. All right, and if you want to come off camera and just be there, I'm like cool with that. I like seeing Emma sitting there. I like seeing Kelly up there, so I don't feel like I'm talking to myself. And we might have some more interaction. So but take out your notes. Okay, so the title of this is Have a Grant Writing Business with Profit and Compassion. And we're going to talk about being neutral in business decision making, creating boundaries, and stop people pleasing. All right, so a little bit about me, because you might not know who I am. Some of you know who I am. My name is Holly Rustick. I am the CEO for the Freelance Grant Writer Academy and the Grant Writing Mentorship. And I'm leading a movement for our students to win $1 billion in grants for good, $30 million in their grant writing businesses by 2030. We're already a quarter of the way there just over the last 2 years. I'm the podcast host of Grant Writing and Funding. Some of you guys said that. Y'all know that's where you got it. Listening in Maine while you're hiking. Love it. Also the best-selling author of The Beginner's Guide to Grant Writing, more than 20 years of grant writing experience, more than 11 years of running a business full-time, although I was part-time freelancing many years before that, many years. And I've been a single mom while building my business. I think it's important to also sometimes you might be like, oh, you have all the experience, it's so easy, like all the things. Like we all come in with our different experiences. We all come in with our different stories, right? We all have our, so I think sometimes it's like important to also weigh it like, yeah, all of this, we all have our own experiences. I have mine. I live in Guam, as I was mentioning before, built up a business also being in Guam, right? And I think I leverage my community all the time. I have an online community as well. But I just reopened my agency this year as well, because I was doing a lot of training. I've been doing a lot of training online the last, since about 2017, I started getting online courses and started my podcast and all of the things, right? And by 2020, I wasn't really writing many grants anymore because I was focusing on leveraging my business. But this year, as we know of grant writers, a lot of nonprofits started coming back to me in my community, and I always do an annual training in my community anyways, and they were like, Holly, we want you to write directly for us. We want you to think for us, basically, like think through all the things that are going through because it feels so chaotic. And I was like, yep, because we're on a movement. We got a movement, y'all. So really, really engaged with my community again. And it's been a lot of fun to restart that and just to also continue the training that we're doing. All right, so what I want to talk about is I definitely want to talk about the elephant in the room, but I don't want to like beat it to death. So the elephant in the room is 2025, right? 2025, what's happening, the freeze in the beginning of the year for federal grants, all of the things, trigger words, I got it, I chat down. I think it's early in Guam right now, so I haven't checked the news today. But, the things are happening, but I also want us to regulate a little bit. I want us to regulate. I've been through, like you've noticed, I've been writing grants for more than 20 years. I've been through 4 government shutdowns. I've been through the pandemic as a grant writer, been through the 2008 recession as a grant writer, 5 US presidential administrations as a grant writer. And I've been doing this since pre-Zoom times. Like I've lived and worked as a grant writer in 5 other countries other than the US, right? So I was out there, I first started writing grants after the Asian tsunami in 2005. right? So it's like, that's been doing it overseas, and I went to Brussels and did my master's overseas. Why freelance grant? Well, freelance grant writing, all of the things. So yes, these are unprecedented times. I don't want to diminish that either. And I know it's impacted some people's businesses for sure, because I work with many, many freelance grant writers, grant writing agency owners. But we've also been able to lean into how to pivot and how to still support this sector and still get paid during this time. But I also don't want to just be Pollyanna about it. So what I've done for you and for me, so we all know, is we gather data, right? We're grant writers, we're data driven. We want to look and see like what is actually going on. And I remember even, gosh, it was probably March, I think, March 2025. And we actually had Mike come on, you know, the CEO of GPA. He came on the podcast and we were both chatting like, what's going on? And really looking at like assumptions are out the window. We can't just assume what's happening right now. We have to look at data, and it's hard because everything's moving so fast. But that was also helpful to see like what are people actually doing. So what I've done for you is I've gathered some information for my program, because I feel like it's a sample size for you all. We have about 350 people in there. They're all freelance grant writers. So it's a good sample size to say, hey, what's going on? So if you want to know the numbers, let's be real. Okay. I'm very behind. Like, if you guys know me, some of you do, I'm very much like, here's behind the scenes. Okay. In our programs last year, so we have to compare it to really see what's going on. 2024, over $138 million in grant awards. Cool, right? And money made in businesses was 4.1 million, give or take, right? 4.1, whatever. Okay. That was 2024 for about 350 grant writers. This year, to date, we still have a couple of months left of the year, but to date, let's see what's going on. Yes, fewer grant wins, right? 57.9 million is about a third-ish, right, of that, like more than that, but a little bit around there. Actually, it's like half. Whatever. Anyways, it's not as much. Okay, it's not as much. Don't make me do this early in Guam, okay? But I want you to see something more interesting, which was very interesting, because, you know, of course, the grants were shut down. We have a lot of people also write federal grants. Not everybody, for sure, writes federal grants in my programs at all. Like, a lot of people just focus on foundation and corporate grants. Some people just focus on state grants. But there was a pause that did impact. Right? We knew that. This was not a surprise that less grants were secured during that time. What's really interesting, though, is 3.6 million, actually a little more than 3.6 million, you see, has been brought into our grant writing businesses this year. This year so far. We still have 2 more months. So if you're actually to do the math on that, which I have done, they're on track to at least meet what they brought in last year, if not more. If not more, actually, it's a little bit more. So that's wild. That's wild, right? So if you think about it, and why is this wild? Oh, let me tell you why it's wild, because y'all know this. A lot of you, and I'm saying you because myself included, I've been through all of the things, right? Have kind of leaned into or just been pigeonholed into thinking grant wins, grant success wins, like how much money you win, is a determination of your value to be hired. It is not. It is clearly not. So how are freelance grant writers in our programs able to still secure the same amount of money in their businesses or more during 2025 while they're securing fewer grants? That's what we're going to talk about today, because I have, once again, the data. So I'm going to tell you what's working, because we lean into data. I always feel like even data is a value. It's a value on my spectrum. So important. So let's get into this. Okay. So what we're going to cover today, you're going to walk away with what's holding you back from having profit and compassion in your business, because those sound very like, they sound almost opposite. Like, I have to have profit or I have to have compassion. I can't have both, right? So what's holding you back from being able to have both of these in your business? And then 4 steps to be able to have neutral decision-making processes, create more boundaries, or just create boundaries. Some of you are new to this. And stop people pleasing in your grant writing business, right? And altogether, what this is going to help you do is surpass $100,000 in your business without burnout, right? And I think that's so important. We're going to hear some case studies today. We're going to do a little workshopping at the end. We're going to do some things, okay? But really, we're going to leverage in this. Okay. So I want to hear from you, and you can just put in the chat A, B, C, D, other, like, let me know who you are. You may be new to a grant writing business. You're thinking about starting a business, but you might be new to grant writing and or business and have imposter syndrome. B, have clients but need cash flow. You might have a client or two, but no consistent systems, unsure of what to price, and no consistent monthly revenue. C, have established at least 50K in your business, but you're burned out. You've hit I can't take on any more clients without working weekends. And that could go up to 100K, whatever that financial cap is for you. Or D, have a current agency. Maybe you have multiple team members or you want to hire team members, but you aren't sure how much to pay. You're stressed, you're fearful of losing quality or people pleasing. It could be a combination. Thank you. Someone who's put in a combination. DeShantis, thank you for putting combination. Yep. So go ahead, drop A, B, C, D, combination, other. Tell me what other is. And just take a second to do that while I scroll through the chat. Deborah says big A. I love it. I love it. Sarah's a B. Okay, yeah, cash flow. I'm seeing some A's. Yep. Kelly Lady. Hannah's a B. Abney's a B. Abney, that's pretty neat. Nick is a D. Love it. Kelly is an A. Ooh, we got a lot of A's. Roxanne. Colleen is an A, B. Crystal's an A. Julie's a D. Penny's a C. Alana, A. Almost 2 years as an in-house at MP, nonprofit. Yeah, but would love to be a B. Yeah. But without the cash flow problem. Yeah, love it. DeShanta's A and B. Unknown is a B. Emily's A. Jordan's a C. Okay, we're getting a lot of I feel like A's and B's. Marilyn is an A. Lois is a B. Jennifer's an A. Valerie, yeah, put in what you are, E. Put the E in. What does that mean? Tell me what your situation is. Sarah's a D. Andrew's a C. Team of 5 consultants and manage 20 to 25 clients at a time. Yeah. Yep. And yeah, it can be especially in these times, I know some people that have had larger grant writing agencies are writing a lot of federal grants, and they have had to cut some of their staff this year, right? Kelly's an A, B, Melissa's a D. Not sure if I fit in any one of those, says Carrie. Yeah, so just go ahead and put in what you are, Carrie. That would be good to know, I'm thinking about grant writing, or I'm working on my grant staff writer, or E, have established clients for multiple years, but purposely part-time. Okay, yeah. And that's fine. You might not want to be growing. Some people that join some of my programs and the mentorship specifically, we have a lot to build out agencies, but we also have people in there that don't want to build out an agency. They just want more effective systems because they want to work very part-time. Andrew says, yes, I had 17 members last year, and now I'm down to 5 because of the grant cuts. Yeah. Valerie, 17 members, steady client base. Very cool. Love it. Okay, so there's going to be a little bit for everybody in here. Definitely, there's going to be some gems. So take some notes. You're going to walk away with something. Super love this. Okay, so now that I know who's in the room, this is exciting. Okay, so here's why you may have joined this session, because of the title, right? Let's talk about the main issue going on. We talked about some of these issues, you feel burned out, or imposter syndrome, these things. But let's talk about the main issue when thinking about, can I have compassion and profit both in my business? You feel like your business is based on heartstrings or bottom lines, okay? These kind of decisions, and that feels impossible. And what do I mean by heartstrings or bottom line? Heartstrings, I hear this all the time, is, but Holly, I love that nonprofit, and I love the cause area, and they're amazing, and they're just pulling at my heartstrings. If I had a penny for every time I heard heartstrings, y'all know you've said it. So I'm not charging, or so I'm not this, right? It's the heartstrings, and then I'm like, here we go. What am I going to hear, right? What kind of things am I going to hear that they don't have boundaries? So the heartstrings is pulling at my heartstrings, giving the deep discounts, all the things. Bottom line then is completely the other side, where we're like, no, but we have to charge for do. And there's nothing wrong with either of these sides. But what they sort of do, if you only look logic or if you only look heart, is we're on almost two sides of a spectrum. We're pigeonholing ourselves. So it has to be one way or the other. it's really hard to kind of say, no, I can do both. I can do both, right? So let's look at how this shows up. Okay, because you think heartstrings, I won't get clients if I charge my regular rates during this economy. I need to give deep discounts. Nonprofits aren't paying right now. That could be a heartstrings issue. A bottom line issue. I need to go way up in my rates because I'm burned out and everything feels hard right now. Heartstrings. Nonprofits will want to hire me with grant freezes, cuts are on the front pages everywhere. Bottom line, my clients buy because of me, my grant writing skills, and I'm afraid to outsource any items because my clients want me and I don't know how much to pay, right, to hire someone. Both. I don't want to increase clients because I'm burned out and literally have no more time to take on clients. Glass ceiling. Glass ceiling. All right, tell me in the chat, any of these resonating with you? You can say just an asterisk if this is resonating with you, or you could say something that is specific. Heartstrings, bottom line. Is that what's kind of feeling like it may be holding you back right now in your business? Sarah says charging regular rates because I'm newer. Yeah. Julie says a little bit of all of them. First one for me, says Marilyn. I'm burned out with a full-time job and have little energy left for side jobs. Yep. Ebony says all of the above. Kelly. Nick says still a little bit of bottom line left, but you're working on it with me. Well, yeah. Hey, Nija. Love to see you here. I want to increase clients. Yes. Penny says bottom line, delegating. Okay. Alana says I have a toddler and I need stable income. Lindsay, I have hired in the past and some didn't work out due to quality or reliability. Nigel, clients, yes. Kelly says, been worried about venturing out on my own because of needing steady income. So bottom line. Hi. Deborah says, heartstrings, nonprofits need money. How can they afford me? Andrea, hey, Andrea, my clients buy because of me and I struggled, with handing work off to another grant writer. It takes me beyond my capacity and stresses me out. Okay. So we're going to talk about, and you can keep adding to that as well. Grant Pro. I'm desperately seeking clients. How do you find them? My clients are ending their projects due to lack of funding and campaigns ending. Okay, yeah. And these are all fears, right? And they're driven basically because of these two things. And sometimes they respond, like they kind of reactive as well. And we'll talk about that too. All right, and we'll talk about like how this kind of issue is causing more issues. And it's once we kind of understand that we can have both and it can be okay. We can have heartstrings, we can have bottom lines, but we can come together. So let's investigate this more. How this has kept you stuck. So let's go a little deeper. Number one, you overprice or you underprice because you price from a mentality of heartstrings or bottom lines. You go in with deep discounts, as I mentioned. You don't bill it for all your hours, maybe, or you go in with overpriced, burned out entitlement. Okay, that's like the bottom line. So you're like so burned out, you're just like, I'm just going to charge you whatever per hour. Like that's quadruple your rate. And while that might work for a minute, it's not going to be sustainable long term. You don't make, like that typo. You don't make solid decisions about your pricing or services, which makes you have low sale conversions. Okay. That's how the thought between I have to have heart, like, ooh, that's how this is showing up. Okay. It's also, this is also keeping you stuck because you end up working on weekends and evenings and the family comes second. Okay, because you think from a place of heartstrings or bottom lines, you don't start or stop your working hours with clear boundaries or work expectations. You don't take off vacations or out of office days. Your clients send you to-do lists at the last minute. Okay, anyone following with this? Number 3, how this is keeping you stuck. You end up with a lot of different products and services, right? And you're living in FOMO. Because you work from heartstrings or bottom line, you don't want to lose out on the cash or the opportunity to serve nonprofits. So you offer too many services that are not related to your main offer, or you do whatever they need whenever they need it. However, you are noticing that this is causing your services being hard to market, no time for efficient and repeatable systems, or to really become the expert. You are burning out. This has also kept you stuck because you end up overpaying for future problems. Because you lead from heartstrings or bottom lines, you bring this into your hiring too. Ooh, it shows up how you are as a manager. Okay, you really aren't sure what your business can afford, but everything feels like a priority to do right now. You overpay based on what you think that person should get rather than what your business can afford. You hire friends and family members, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but if you do it from this heartstrings or bottom line kind of issue, you're going to hire them to do things in your business that actually don't need to be done right now, right? Let's be real. And you run out of funds. This creates messy situations and you think you are a terrible manager when really you just didn't hire the right role at the right amount. All right, I want to hang out here for a second because I feel like this is a big thing too, is, here's the thing, a lot of people, they're like, okay, I'm going to hire, and then all of a sudden, possibly, somebody applies for the position that's overqualified. Let's face it, they're overqualified, they still apply for the position, and then you feel like, okay, they want to negotiate with the price, they want to do all of this, and you're like, but they have all this experience, I should be paying them X, when really what you need to do is set how much can your business afford for that role. What is the role that they will actually do? What are the qualifications that they actually need? And that's it. So I have people in my company, yes, are they overqualified for what they're doing? Do they make more in their own businesses than working in mine? Yes, right? They can make more as a grant writer and get clients, but I didn't hire them based on their qualifications. I hired based on the qualification of the job that is actually open. It's up to them if they think that sounds like a lot of fun. I don't have to go out and get clients. I can coach people. This is fun, right? And they want to come in and do it at that price. That's all it is. It's very neutral. My business is making the decision. It's not about me. It's about my business making the decision. And it's up for them then to say, yes, they want to do that. And that's fair and equal, right? So that's a huge thing. Ping-ponging between heartstrings or bottom line decisions won't create a profitable and compassionate business because you're fighting it. You're at two ends of the pendulum. So how do we do this? How do we come and we merge the two and we come into balance of profit and compassion, right? Because let's face it, a lot of us in here, let me see the chat, or let me see the, yeah. We got some men in here, but it's mostly women, okay? Like, I know Rachel Waterman, she does a survey every day, or every year, and every day. She does a survey every year on how freelance grant writers are pricing, and we've realized that 82% of freelance grant writers are female, right? And being a female, myself, like we take in, there's different things that we're kind of programmed to as well, and within the nonprofit sector that we may bring into this work of thinking, if I don't do it for free, I'm considered a, right? Or I'm like, not, they don't like me. Like there's so many things that go behind this when we're just bringing our own trauma and own systemic issues into this, right? So what I'm here today is to shatter those, right? To shatter those for you so we can have more balance. All right, so starting with that, because if this is a bold class, we're gonna talk about money, love it. Most of us don't talk about money enough. I believe, especially women, I'm giving you permission right now to make money. Okay, I'm giving you permission. Okay, so let's talk about that because you're like, but Holly, that sounds like a bottom line thing. No, it's not. It's not just okay for you to make money, it's vital as freelance grant writers. It's vital, okay? Now, I'm not saying your whole business needs to be driven by making money. It doesn't. But let's talk about what happens when you actually make money. Okay, especially as women, it's important, especially as people of color, it's important to make more money, especially as new mothers, it's important to make more money, and especially as someone who's retiring soon, it's important to make more money. When you have money in your pocket and you're not just living on peanuts or all of the things, right? Guess what? Women on average, I gotta say it's 95%, we put more money back into our community versus, no offense, men, 34% of men, right? Us women, we want to nurture. We are putting some of that money back into our economies, into our communities, and into our legacies. And then our children don't have to, we don't have to depend on our children when we age, all of the things, right? It is okay to make more money. I know there's a lot of things behind us saying, oh, we're in the nonprofit sector, we should just be heartstrings. And some of you, let me say, you may have a very wealthy partner. You may have very wealthy parents that left you a trust fund and you don't want to charge. Cool. I'm fine with that. I'm good. But most of us in this room today, guess what? We still got to pay the bills, right? We are still working. We're still putting money aside for our retirement. We're still building up, maybe paying off debt, paying for our children, maybe other single moms in here. It is okay to make money. So I also just want to boom, shatter the thought. Okay, and that might have been ooh, a little spicy for some of you, a little spicy. But I also want to talk about the heartstrings part of this. And right now, it's vital now more than ever to ensure nonprofits have funding for their cause areas. When you make money, they're making money because you are supporting them. So you want to get excellent on learning how to help nonprofits and organizations get funding in 2025 and 2026. Like, this is your go time. It is important to bring money in for those causes, right? So important, but it's also important to bring money in for your business. You can have hearts, or you can have profit, you can have compassion. Okay, so let's talk about this. You can build 100K, 250K, $1 million grant writing business and still charge less than a staff person to a nonprofit and align with many nonprofits' budgets, even in 2025. Even in 2025. So it doesn't require being mean or too nice. It just requires stopping some things that you're doing. Okay, so that's what we're going to lean into today. But before we do this, I also want to say some really cool things that are happening. I've been talking about this for years. I've been talking about how it's actually so much more affordable for nonprofits to hire freelance grant writers than staff grant writers. Am I trying to ruin all of your job, staff grant writers? Maybe. I was a staff grant writer for a long time. Maybe, maybe not. But what I'm saying is that especially in the year of 2025, when nonprofits and organizations are, what is the big S word this year? Streamlining. They're streamlining their budgets right now, right? And even, okay, let me rewind for a second. Even before the pandemic, I had this stat, right? And I was looking at, once again, I'm research driven, I'm data driven, and looking at the stat, and I found this information and everything about the rise of freelancers. And it was talking about by 2030, like 82%, I think it was of like Gen Z or the millennials will be freelancers. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy, man, right? That's crazy. But I knew it because I had been a freelancer for a long time before Skype. I'm aging myself. But what's important here and what's interesting to talk about is what happened in 2020, COVID. That accelerated freelancers tremendously because it got nonprofits and organizations on Zoom. It got people working from home comfortable, like all of the things. And then I was like, oh, okay, we may hit that then. We may hit that 80%, which is very interesting. So fast forward to 2025, at the beginning of 2025, LinkedIn article comes out. They were saying, what are the top, 100 jobs for 2025? Of course, this was like the end of December, early January, something around there. Number 15, according to LinkedIn, what they were seeing was what? It was freelance grant writing or grant consultants, right? So it wasn't staff grant writers. So there was already a change happening. Like, we've been following this change, right? And then what happens is it's getting more into people's minds. I interviewed somebody the other day, executive director and founder of a nonprofit, on my podcast, and this is what I heard. And I was like, okay, we are definitely changing. What I heard her say is, well, after she talked to me for a while, she said, okay, I think I actually need to hire a freelance grant writer because they were writing their own grants. So they're growing to like a $1.7 million nonprofit. And she goes, but what she said was, she goes, so as we're looking at a nonprofit, I actually think we would need to hire a freelance grant writer. And I had to stop her for a minute and go, you just said freelance grant writer, not staff grant writer. Where in the past, if I was having conversations with people, they might be like, oh, I'm hiring a grant writer or a staff grant writer, right? But now right away, people are going freelance. So I said, why'd you say freelance right away? Because that's a very different way than I've heard other people, especially nonprofit executive directors, say it. She goes, well, because we're streamlining our budget this year, because that makes more sense right now, because we can try them on, like all of the things that made sense for her as a nonprofit decision maker. And now I know, like, we are definitely in the realm of that change, right? And I just kind of wanted to highlight this because yes, you can still see staff writer grant. Some people still want staff grant writers, cool. But I've also been telling a lot of people, if you're looking at LinkedIn, you're looking for jobs. If you're going to apply for a job and you have a freelance grant writer, grant writing business, and I think every single grant writer needs to open it up on the side, even if they don't have any clients yet, just because you never know. I've seen the back end of budgets. You never know. We've had so many people come into our programs this year that have been furloughed, fired, laid off, etc. You never know what's happening. You want to have something set up. So, but I say don't panic and then just start applying for 100 jobs. Apply for those jobs on behalf of your business. And more they're actually seeing, well, actually it is a freelance job. cool, right? So we are seeing the transition into this as well. So I wanted to go sideways for a minute just to kind of give you guys behind the scenes what's happening. But is that inspiring for anyone in here? Anyone seeing that change as well? You can just put some asterisks in the chat. I want to make sure you're here. Yes. So you say yes. Okay, but I want you to, I'm going to tell you what's going on. I'm going to tell you what's going on. All right. Here's some things I want you to stop doing. So I'm not just going to give you the strategy, like here's like, we're going to break into some workshopping, don't worry about that. But I want to tell you, like, actually you can just stop doing some things or don't start doing them, y'all, if you haven't started your business yet. Because these are things that what we've analyzed with the people in our programs and what's working so they can get all that money, right, and get their clients, like working with their clients still this year are some things. Stop calling yourself a grant writer, right, is one of those. What, Holly? What are you talking about? Call yourself a grant strategist. It is time to lean into new language, okay? You don't just write grants, do you? No, you don't. But why are you calling yourself a grant writer? Well, you call yourself a grant writer because that's what people are used to. You know you do more, but maybe you just haven't marketed yourself in a different way. Or you haven't given yourself the permission. Maybe you do just lean into grants right now and you do very little strategy because you can't even take a beat from the writing and learn into doing some of the strategy work, right? But what this really happens then is ultimately you've devalued your work if you're just like, oh yeah, I'm a grant writer. Like, I don't mind you introducing yourself like that just to get someone's attention because that's an easy like party like I call it the party favor, getting the client like at a birthday party or whatever. What do you do? Oh, I'm a grant writer. Ooh. But then I want you to lean into, I'm a grant writer. We also do a lot of strategy. Or you could say I'm a grant strategist that also does grant writing. Cool, like even better. What that does is it changes the conversation from the beginning. It changes the conversation in your proposals on how you lay things out. We'll kind of break that down a little bit. And, it's just a word, but words are powerful, as we know. And if you lean into this, it also is going to kind of change how you're setting up and viewing your work. What I want you to be thinking about right now, and what I'm sure a lot of you always have been, but let's face it, with all the money coming out of COVID, like it was different times, right? Like I said, we're kind of like getting into a different type of grant writing environment, which there's still grants out there, y'all. You saw we're still winning money, not as much as last year, but hey, we knew that there's still a lot of money. $58 million is nothing to laugh at, right? So what's happening here is you want to be able to lean into what you're doing and you want to be able to lean into getting results for your clients. That's all we've been thinking about this year too, is how do we get results? How are the results? What are we doing? What's working? What's not? What do we streamline? All of that. We're thinking just like nonprofits are thinking as well. So we want to be in the brains of nonprofits. And if we're just like, well, we're just grant writing and they have all these objections about grant writing right now, right? Because of the news, because of this, that might actually be a closed door. But if you're leaning into, I'm a grant strategist, they're like, I need that right now, right? So you can see very simple, very, very powerful. So what does a grant strategist do in 2025, 2026? Well, here are some of the things that you can do, which might not even be any different than you've already been doing, but you're just repositioning yourself, okay? So you're staying on top of grant changes, especially in your cause area. I don't mean you guys have to stay attention. You don't have to keep attention to every single executive order that's coming out, every single whatever. Like, no, you do not have to be like in it, right? You can pay attention to a couple people who are doing that. Easy for you, but I say maybe lean into your cause area of what's going on, right? Think about if you're writing grants for a specific federal agency for most of your clients, or different foundation, like what's going on with the causes there, the meet the moment cause that has happened. Like pay attention to what like your cause area, geographic area, whatever kind of like your main areas. Even for you generalists, you might just write foundation grants for a variety of, pay attention to like what that thing is. Attend webinars for grants and make go or no go decisions on grants. Okay. There's also some maybe some new things coming out that you do have to pay attention to in your lane. And you're like, okay, I got to take the time. If you can do that and your nonprofit executive doesn't, is that valuable for them? Hell yeah. That's so stressful with all the changes and all the things that they have to do. That is huge value. Meeting monthly with your clients, letting them know of updates, tasks, etc. Continual prospecting for grant funding. Create strategies for your clients to develop relationships with funders. This is a big thing. A lot of people in our programs have been doing this year. They've leaned into this even more. And we're seeing that relationships are what are getting grants won, especially on the foundation level right now. But it's also like a lot of nonprofits, they're like, I don't know how to develop a relationship, you know what I mean, with a funder source or funding source. So it's for you to come in and maybe give them some scripts. Maybe right? Maybe it's as simple as that. Sometimes it's like, well, I want to reach out to them, but I just don't have the language. Like, how do I ask? Right? Sometimes it's just as simple as developing some scripts for your clients. Developing here's a CRM. It's like, here's a spreadsheet. So you can follow up with them. Sometimes it's as easy as that. Yes. And write grants after talking through budgets, priorities, and work plans. Of course, you're going to write grants too, but you're also just not writing the narrative. A lot of us are writing budgets. We're writing the priorities. We're understanding program design, right? So leaning into this strategy and this strategist role is very, very important because it could be exactly what you're already doing. But now instead of calling yourself a grant writer, like you are leaning into something different. And Andrea says, I've always called myself a grant professional at the GPA conference. A lot of you call yourself a grant professional. That is really good too. But I would lean into the word strategist for a minute because it's a little more active, right? So I'm not going to say the GSA, it should be, but we can look at that. And you can lean into this a little bit more, right? And Carrie says, yep, actual grant writing makes up less than 50% of my billable client work. Exactly. And here's the fault though, if you don't really outline the other work you're doing, is a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I didn't include that. I just said I'm going to write, a lot of y'all do this 2 to 3 grants a month or 15 to 20 grants per year, you know what I mean? And that's all you put in your proposal. So all this other work sometimes, the nonprofits or the organizations really aren't even seeing it. They're only thinking grant writing. I just had this conversation yesterday, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. And I said, if I just give you my price and I only give you the number of grants that I'm going to write for you, you would divide that price by the number of grants and think that's per grant how much I charge, right? That's in your brain. That's what they're going to do automatically. But you have to show them the other things. Okay. All right. So like I mentioned, before 2025, you could get away with that. We write X number of grants for X number of dollars if you wanted to, right? Cool, easy breezy, no problem. Now, leaning into the future, what I want you to lean into, we provide X number of funding assets, continual prospecting, just strategic grant support, grant writing, and grant decision support. You can clean that up. You can use your own language. You can be like, that sounds like a mouthful, but I want some things, right? I want it not just be like, we write X number of grants. Because right now the objection is what? Are there still going to be grants there? What about this? What about that? I want you to lean into overcoming objections just in your tagline, just in your offer service statement, right? I want you to lean more into that. That's automatically going to overcome objections. But for me too, I'm going to reposition myself. I don't just write grants. I do these other things. I need to make sure there's time on my calendar to do these things. I need to lean into what that looks like, right? Okay. So let's move forward. Okay, let me show you an idea. We've also moved into this idea, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, is funding assets in 2025 versus grants. Okay. So what I've really realized in this year, we can be flexible, but we still need rinsable and repeatable systems. So we're going to talk about how we can kind of combine these. When I went with a client call yesterday, a sales call, I said, okay, we have fixed funding assets and then we have flexible funding assets, and you have a total of 20. But your fixed assets are 12. You get 12 credits for that. They're like, what's this credit system, Holly? I said, well, we're going to write a master grant template. We're going to do a grant prospect report and calendar. We're going to do ongoing prospecting. You have up to 3 strategy meetings, monthly reports that I'll deliver, and I'm available via email. That counts as 12 credits. And then you have an additional 8 credits that you can use any way you want. You can mix and match these for your company or for your organization. And it really depends on what we find in the prospecting and where we're going to lean into. But a federal grant is not the same amount of weight or credits versus a foundation grant. Okay, so instead of getting that, like, well, how much more do you have to charge now? Or you said you're going to write 8 grants, and now, but now you're saying you can only write 2 federal grants because you didn't specify it's a foundation, federal, etc. Right? So playing into the nonprofits need flexibility right now with everything changing, and how can you be flexible but still keep boundaries? Well, one of the ways that we found is giving certain weight to different things and giving a set of credits for our clients, right? And this can be something that you could then pull in. And I'm not saying to put everything in the flexible credits that you've never thought about doing. But for us, I was like, okay, we could definitely write a foundation grant or a letter of inquiry is 1 credit. State grant, 3 credits. Federal and international government grant, 5 credits, right? It's more work. It's more work. Concept paper for every 4 pages, 1 credit. Foundation grant report, only programmatic. Notice I didn't put budget there, 1 credit. And for me, because I have this experience, our company, we can do 1 newsletter and so 4 social copy captions, right, is 1 credit. So if that's something you're like, what? Why would your grant writing company do that? Isn't that way out of scope, Holly? No, because what? I'm creating a master grant template. With that, I can repurpose it into any writing tool that they need. But that's one that I know a lot of nonprofits, especially this one specifically that I pitched, I know they need, right? So did I get the contract? Yes, I got the contract. But now instead of them just going, here's your cost divided by X number of grants equals cost, right? No. Now the fixed funding assets, I'm like, we're going to be doing that is a value. It is a value. Okay. Carrie says, ooh, I really like thinking about it this way. Really helpful too in communicating the value perspective of services to clients. Yeah. So yeah, and it is. And every month, then what do? We show how many credits you used, how many you still have available. Do we also include some of those fixed asset or fixed funding assets? Yes, we show them that they've used that many, right? So this is a really good way of just kind of keeping them on task, keeping the boundaries there. And then, hey, and I'll show you how you can do this. But if you do offer other things that you just haven't put in your proposal, I mean, you could have it. And even with them, I said, well, when we got to talking more, I said, we'll probably hang out in the foundation one. We'll probably hang out there the most is what I see, right? And they said, cool, no problem. Yeah. If they don't use the flexible credits, is it use or lose? Absolutely, yeah. Use or lose for the amount of time that you have with them. Yeah. For your contract. So it sounds like you work on a monthly retainer that includes an hourly, optional hourly stretch. No, it's not an hourly option. It's just a monthly retainer. Is that correct? Or do you have fees for each asset? What are the benefits? No, just I have a monthly. This is how much you pay. We have X number of credits over a certain period of time. You pay the same amount every month. You use it or lose it. Yeah. How long it depends on how many I'm going to give them. I typically will go anywhere from a 6-month or a 12-month retainer. I prefer 12 months, but sometimes, we're working with clients right now what their budget is, and that's cool too. It would just be reducing the number of assets then. Yeah, reducing the number of assets. And that's what I always tell you all, like, if you're sitting there going, man, but Holly, this nonprofit just doesn't have money, right? They just don't have the money to even do any of this. Well, that's the reason I wrote this book. That's the reason I started my podcast, right? So there would be another product that would be accessible to those people, right? So you don't have to write a book. You don't have to start a podcast. But what about thinking about it more? What's I like to call it a DIY versus a done for you. Done for you is always going to be more expensive. If I'm the one doing the grant writing, if I'm the one doing the prospecting, like my company, if that's what we're doing, it's gonna that's your VIP, like that's your suite service, right? But if I'm creating a template where I'm like, here, go ahead and you go do this, but I'll give you the worksheet and maybe a video to go get it done. Obviously, that's a done or DIY, right? So it's going to be less expensive, right? So there's also you can think about that. There's different product prices. Okay, and I'll go more into this. I just wanted to give you guys a snapshot and be like, yeah, I sold this yesterday. Okay. Right? So it works. It's working. And the reason for that is I want to have flexibility for my clients right now. Like I understand, right? I understand. And then I don't want to be like, oh, that's going to be an extra this. Like they already know the credits. If they want to buy more credits, cool. Cool, no problem. Oh, thanks, Alana. I appreciate you. So I love this. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up this strategy. Stop calling yourself a grant writer. Call yourself a grant strategist. Set up your offers to include this positioning. Okay, grant professionals. Yeah, it's fine if you guys are leaning in grant professionals. I know this is the GPA conference, But I would still think about how do you still just reposition the strategy point? Strategy is a strong active word. How can you implement some of that more? Know that even if there there aren't as many grants, nonprofits are still hiring for grant strategy, especially now. That's how our clients are still getting paid as well. Some of them are like, I've leaned into consultation, I've leaned into coaching more this year, I've leaned into doing strategic planning. We offer strategic planning, the whole thing, like getting in there and still supporting. Nonprofits still need you, organizations still need you this year. There may not be as many grants open during certain times, or there may be really fast turnarounds, like things are just a little weird right now. That's okay. There's still a lot more Meet the Moment came together, a lot of foundations are coming together, but there's a lot of pressure and things going on, but nonprofits still need you to guide them with their funding strategies. All right. Strategy number 2, what to stop doing. Stop overworking yourself as a grant writer. Okay. I should change up all my words here too. Stop overworking yourself as a grant strategist. Okay. Well, let me lean into what you've been doing as a grant writer. All right. You may be thinking about learning how to write grants, as many of you are here, because you all said, a lot of you are saying, I'm an A, right? And you think it might take too much time, or you may be a freelance grant writer and stuck in client work. After working with over 500 freelance grant writers in the last 2 years, so now I'm pulling out data from the last 2 years, and literally like thousands over the last 10 years, it is that many of you are overworking yourselves. And I was totally guilty of doing this too, right? You're taking the employee mentality into your freelance grant writing business because that's what you know. And are you scope creeping? You're doing outside work of your deliverables, or you don't even have deliverables, right? It's just, I'll do anything. That's what's happening. So why are you doing this? Why are we doing this? Why is this community doing this? Well, if you deliver here's the thing though. If you deliver the value you both agreed to delivering, i.e. X number of credits or X number of grants and X time frame for X amount, then all parties should be happy, content at least, right? We've agreed on this, we've signed it, we've started the payment, right? We good, right? But why are you overworking? It's definitely the heartstrings or bottom line issues, right? You want your client to like you, so you overwork. Okay. You feel bad. That grant to get awarded. I get it, y'all. I get it. You feel bad a grant to get awarded, so you work for free on one, maybe. You think this overworking makes them value you more, but here's what happens. Your clients just straight up feel weird because they aren't sure if they should pay you more or not. You're putting them in an awkward situation. All right. They might say, oh, that's nice, but it's weird. Or they forgot what was even in their scope of work, and they're going to expect you just to overwork in the future or just jump and go at any minute, right? So, and we develop sometimes these relationships with our clients that turn into friendships, and they turn into these other, which is cool. It's great. I love it. But at the same time, we still need to be like, okay, there are boundaries. Okay, because why? If you just do anything and all the things and you're right, then this results. You feel bitter at the client because you set them up with unsustainable expectations. Right? We almost do it we actually do it to ourselves a lot of the time. We start setting these practices and these norms, and then we get upset because they're like, oh, they expect me to do that. I just already did all this other free stuff for them, and they're still coming to me, and I'm just gonna fire them as a client. Okay? That's what happens. Okay, but then you're gonna say, but Holly, I'm not overworking myself. I do set my boundaries, but they still ask for favors. Okay, I got ready for that. I know you guys. Okay, they ask you to do something extra and an immediate yes comes out of your mouth. No problem. Okay, stop doing that. I want you all to pause. But can you just do this other thing? Because remember, half the time they really don't remember what was in the contract. Yes, they asked you every little detail in your sales call. Yes, they pined over it and they fought with you about their whatever. They tried to negotiate. But at the end of the day, they forgot how many grants you're supposed to write, all of the things, right? They forgot. They're going to ask you to do more things. It doesn't mean they're mean. It doesn't mean they're rude. It doesn't mean they actually are expecting you to say yes, but they're going to ask. You don't have to say yes. I want you to pause. Okay, if you have time to take on this work, here's what I want you to say, or something like this. Okay, I'm going to give you words to say, because a lot of times this is what, that went open. This is what a lot of you start spinning out about, because that's what I spun out about, is just not having the language on how to say no. Ooh, that's a good one. A lot of us spin out because we don't have the language to say no. That's very powerful. Okay. So I want to give you the language to say no. If you have time to take on this extra thing they're throwing on your plate, here's what you can say. Sure, we can absolutely support you. Since that is not in our, since that isn't in our contract, it will be X amount of dollars. We can have it done by X time. Would you like me to send you an invoice over so we can get started on that right away? Is that neutral? Yeah. Is that harsh? No. Is that setting boundaries really clearly? Yeah. Simple, right? Simple. If you don't have the time to take it on and you really are that busy and you're like, no way, then I'd have to like miss Halloween trick-or-treating tonight. Like, I don't even want, no. Pause. Then just use this verbiage. Thank you for sending this over, as it looks like a great opportunity if it does. Unfortunately, this is outside of our scope of work or priority area, and we do not have the capacity to do this at this time. In the future, feel free to submit any extra work for consideration at least X number of weeks in advance, and we can send an additional invoice for work outside of scope and see if it can fit into our calendar for you. Is that neutral? Yeah. Is that mean? No. Right? Is that too nice, too passive, too aggressive, too whatever? No, it's just like here, it's just reality. Like you sign this, I sign this, we agreed to this. This is our agreement. This is our agreement. And now you want me to do something outside of our agreement. And maybe you forgot what our agreement was, and that's cool. I'm just here to remind you what the agreement was. And if I can do anything more, this is what it would look like. Like if you want to go that way, sure, no problem. Like that's absolutely cool. If you want to add more credits, if you want to add more things, and if I have the time, absolutely. Here's what it looks like. Here's what that costs. If you want to add to our agreement, right? If you want to go outside of our agreement. Is this helpful? Just having language? Go ahead and put in the chat. Let's see what the chat's doing. It's like opening up full screen now. Do you have podcasts or other? Yeah, I have a lot. Yes, flirt with retainer. Start dating it. Yes, the language is helpful. Cool. Okay, this is great. Yeah, and this is what I want you guys to really think about in neutral business decisions. I'm going to give you this extra little bonus right now because you guys sound like you're jiving with some of this. Okay, the extra little thing is, and I didn't have this, but I should have as a main point, but I'm just integrating it, is you can also stop calling yourself, even just to yourself, a freelancer and start calling yourself a CEO. Right? I want you to think about, and this is kind of the analogy I like to give, is that your business is a separate entity than you. Part of why you get stuck in not knowing how to respond, and this, like, I don't even know how the language, as soon as I give people the language, they're like, cool, run with it. And then they're like, that whole thing that was like, man, keeping me up at night, and I don't know how to respond, and causing the issues and anxiety, it's gone now because I just had simple language to use. I just didn't have it. Remember, the language to say no is very important. But the reason why we're having such a hard time with this too is because we're thinking about it, we're going, but it's me, it's my business, I'm making the decision. Like I said, sometimes you do become friends with these people or they know you and you're like, but then it sounds like I'm saying no. I want you to think about your business is saying and setting the rules, not you. Your business is not you. Am I all over Holly Rustick all over the internet? Yes, but my business is not me. My business has an operating system that has to make a certain profit and it has to sustain so it can help more nonprofits. It has to have policies, it has to have boundaries. I'm just leaning into what my business, so I want you to think about your business as your board of directors. Okay, y'all work with nonprofits, y'all get this. Your business is your board of directors and you are the ED. And if you sit there and go, sure, I'll do that for free, guess what? You are being a terrible ED. Your board should fire you. All right, I know I'm being spicy. We getting spicy today. We're gonna get even spicier in a second. That's what I want you all to think about. Okay, you are the ED. You have to listen to your board. And I know you newbies, you're getting scared. You're going, should I start freelancing? This sounds. Ooh. Okay, no, it's all good. I'm helping you. I'm getting you set up so you don't start making some of the mistakes. Okay, I'm bringing you into this with a healthy mindset. Okay, because what you want, if you want to start a freelance grant writing business, chances are you want more freedom in your schedule, right? That's the number one thing. It's probably what you want. I want you to make sure you have that when you open your business. Having boundaries and being neutral is going to get you there. Okay. All of this. That's yes, 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 yes. Okay. So stay within the bounds of your contract. You're just being neutral. That's what your board of directors said you need to do, right? Put together a scope of work that will get the nonprofit results. We also don't want to be like, well, we're only going to make, we don't. No, we want to get the results. When you get your clients' results, you get more clients. You get to help more of the world. You get to actually change the world in positive ways. Gwen, our co-coach in the academy, I love her. She writes a lot of municipality grants in New Mexico in her area. And she gets to drive around when her friends come visit her and go like, I helped create that park. I helped create that building over there. Like, we do things that change the world for good. That is exciting. I want to do more of that. So I don't want to overprice. I don't want to overwork. I don't want to do all the things. I want to meet my clients where they're at, but I also need boundaries so I can keep doing that work. Okay. All right. Put together a scope of work that will get them results. Stay within it. They agreed to the price and deliverables, and you agreed to doing it. So stop being that person. Okay. Stop it. All right, so wrap up. Okay, I'm not yelling at you, but I kind of am. I'm kind of yelling at us all. I'm kind of yelling at that, like, that younger person of yourself that was, you're like, what are you doing? Okay, so I'm going to shake you up a little bit. Think of yourself as the CEO and not the company or the employee. Your clients are not your boss, right? Your board, which is that your company, is your boss, not your clients. Okay, that's what I want to, they're not your client, or they're not your boss. Stay within your scope of work unless you charge more outside of it. Set expectations and clearly and neutrally communicate this. You don't need to be yelling at them like I'm yelling right now. we have simple language, yeah. We have simple ooh, we can decompress with it. Okay. Make sure everyone is reminded of the scope of work. Number 3. Ooh, this is spicy. Now we're getting into spice. I'm checking my time. Okay, we got 30 more minutes. You guys hanging out with me. All right. Stop overpricing. And this is spicy because why? This is super juicy because usually when you come in here, I'm like, you all want to charge them, baby. You got to charge more, right? But we're going to start to shake things up because looking into 2026, I also realize it's like that heartstrings are bottom lines. You're either way underpricing or way overpricing, and you're like, pricing is the number one thing, right? So let's get you there. Let's get you to like balance out, especially in 2026. One of the things that I've been leaning into this year, and if you guys have been, it sounds like some of you have been listening to my podcasts and stuff and hearing some of this, but I want to like lean into this more, is something called a minimum valuable product, like a value product, not a minimum viable product where you hear MVP a lot, but a minimum value product in 2026. Because what is the S word again? Yeah, I know there's a lot of S words for this year, but what is one? Streamlining. Yeah, streamlining. Cool. So we also need to think about our services in that way. We don't just they're going to cut us out because they're going to streamline. No, how would you streamline them to be attractive to nonprofits right now? That's a thought. That's a thought. You need to think the same way about your business. So what I've seen after working with more than 350 grant writers just in this year, so 500 over the last 2 years, 350 this year, is what? Many of you are adding fluff to your contracts thinking it will help you sell it, but it only makes you overpriced. You could have got away with this maybe the last few years. You can't anymore. You can't anymore. Okay. This is an important note, especially in 2025, when streamlining is the word for every organization. 2025, we only have a couple more months left, so. And it's funny, y'all, I created this training because we have to create them so early for GPA, like our titles and everything, like almost a year in. So I actually changed a lot of this training recently because I was like, y'all need like the goods. So this is like updated stuff. Okay, so 2025 and 2026, nonprofits and organizations want what? Diverse grant funding, strategy and relationships to get them that funding, and to be updated on what's going on in the grant funding world so they don't have to spend every waking moment following it and losing their hair about it. Okay, those are the 3 things they're really wanting. Okay, and maybe even that diverse grant funding, we could extend it to diverse funding. Okay, so that's what's happening. You need to do the work that will drive forward the most value for your client without fluff. Figure out what is the minimum you can do to get valuable results. Cut out the fluff from your contracts, price appropriately. Stop delivering more than what you're getting paid to do. And if you look back at my flexible credits, I'm not saying they have to do all that stuff. And I'm like, what should everything I should do to put it in the scope of work to make sure they ask me is covered, and then I overprice. Instead of being like, no, you can just pick from these. But you can't pick from anything outside this. You can pick from this, right? And you can only have the selected this. Like, think about, and because I want what is going to get them the most value. If a federal grant opens up for this nonprofit that I'm working with now, because they could be grant ready for that, I want to be able to serve them. But I already want it in my contract, and I don't want it to be weird and all the things. Like, I want to be flexible, but I also want to be able to have them streamline it, right? So you can think about it in that way. So don't take out what's important. Like, I still want you to have the important things that you know get results. I don't want you to trim that. That is not trimming fat. That's not trimming the fluff. That's not cutting that. Keep in what's important. You say, I have fixed assets. No, you gotta do this because I know these are not important. I know these will get results for your nonprofit. You don't know all the time and you want to fight and negotiate. These are fixed, right? These are fixed. Examine what needs to get done now into what depth. Over pitching doesn't make sense right now, and it probably makes you overpriced. So here's the way I want you to think about this. If you can get results by writing 15 grants, stop pitching to write 35. If that full-on nonprofit wellness or grant readiness can be cut down to a DIY versus a done for you where you're doing it, and instead it's a checklist, do it. Then you can reduce your prices, right? If finding 25 grant funding prospects versus 50 grant funding prospects makes sense, do it. Don't overwork, so then you're overpricing for a result you don't really need. Think minimum valuable product, okay? If weekly meetings can be cut to monthly, do it. If live meetings can be turned into Loom wrap-ups that you do in 5 to 7 minutes and just send an email, do it. I want you to think about how can you reduce your time by still getting results. Some of that is going to be setting up streamlined processes. We don't have the time to talk about all that today, but on the very minimum things, I want you just to get your head wrapped around the mentality behind even going down that strategy, right? Okay. But Holly, then I'll lose money. Then I'll lose money if I'm charging less. No, get more clients. Okay, get more clients, serve more. Create rinse and repeat processes with fewer deliverables. So a simple retainer could look like month 1, we're going to do grant strategy meeting and onboarding. Grant 2, we're going to be doing grant prospecting and create that grant. Months 2 to 12, we're going to do a monthly report, quarterly strategy calls, ongoing prospect, and writing grants. That would be, you're working about 20 hours per month. $2,500 a month is a very nominal, right? That could be nominal. I'm not saying to price this exactly. We got to look at your area, all the things, but I'm just saying, like, this is a low hanging fruit. $2,500 a month, 4 clients equals 10K a month. That's 120K per year. 80 hours per month. That's 80 hours per month, y'all. Okay, so it can be done, but y'all need to stay in with your scope. What's happened is I'm overworking now. I'm doing way more time than that because you're taking, remember, stop overworking. Okay, stop overpricing. How can you cut things down? How can you just focus on the minimum valuable right now? Okay, case study. Christine realized that faith-based nonprofits this year in her state were eligible for a certain grant. She put together a time-limited sale just for that and was able to make 15 sales within the month of October this month. Nonprofits and organizations are looking for clear results for streamlined budgets right now. Christine is creating streamlined processes now on rinse and repeat one product, and I'm coaching her to expand this to all states can get this. I'm like, there's your main offer that can go right into your retainers, right? I always like having like a main like come in offer and then retainers. So yes, definitely I have more of this, but that's not this conversation today, but I wanted to show you a case study on how this could apply, right? Okay, another case study is, here's just some language again. Here's the language, and it's like a case study language. If people are coming to you, but I want all the blah, 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 here's a good way you can respond to them. Once again, language for you. I'd love to work with nonprofits for free, heartstrings. However, my business has to be sustainable to operate. Therefore, we lean into what deliverables are needed to get your nonprofit results. We don't add frills or fluff. We have streamlined services and do X. This keeps costs down and allows us to work with nonprofits while being able to operate without burnout so we can serve you 100%. Let your business lead. Don't make decisions hard, y'all. They're not hard. They're just decisions. Remember, your board's making them. Your business is making them. Okay? Make them be the bad you want. You're just the ED doing a good job. Okay? Okay, so let's wrap this up. Streamline your deliverables with your most valuable product. Cut the fluff, knowing that cutting fluff can also mean being more flexible, so you aren't doing it all, but pick and choose what you have, i.e. flexible funding assets. Lean in and on results right now. Results. How do I get them the results they want? Remember the results they're looking for. Diverse funding streams. They want you to pay attention to things going on. They want strategy, right? Price with streamline in your mind, and if needed, include some DIY and instead of so much done for you. Okay, and I hope you guys see the difference. DIY versus done for you. Done for you is direct service work. DIY is a little different. So stop overpricing. Okay, I have one more thing to do. In this one, I have one more point. We might have time for a little workshop, or we might just open it up to questions. All right. Strategy number 4. This is super spicy, and it might feel in contradiction, but it's not. Stop only writing grants. Oh, okay. Yes, extra spicy. Let's talk about a master grant template. Anyone in their business do something like this, a grant boilerplate, master grant template? A lot of you do this potentially when you're onboarding clients. Go ahead and put in the chat if you do. If you're not sure, no worries. You can say NA. Lindsay does. Penny does. Launching this soon, says Melissa. Yes, Nija. Julie says yes. Colleen says yes. Hannah, yes. I use 3 pricing tiers: administrative grant work and federal grant work. Very cool, says Grant Pro. Because you a grant pro. Love it. Jordan says, yep. Okay. Are you using it to the full benefit? Deborah says not yet. No, it's cool. It's cool. I want you to show it. If you are using it, a lot of you might just be using it like to onboard. Jody says no. Start it with it, Kelly says, but didn't continue. Okay, yeah. So a lot of you are using it to onboard, but how you can use it, especially going into 2026, and what we're seeing people use it in 2025 to get the clients, as we talked about, to do the work, to get results, is looking at it in a different way. So a master grant template, or a boilerplate, for those of you who don't know, it means, you're asking all the information. You're basically building out a template about their organization. And I always say, write it about their 1 to 3 priority areas. That's it. That's it. I don't want to hear all the vision, because executive directors have got the visions and they got the ideas, and I love that for them, and I'm living that for them. But when I'm a grant writer and a grant strategist, guess what? I have to take you down to ground. I'm taking down. I'm like the mouse, you're the eagle. Let's get to work, right? So we have to help organize them and help them think, here's the projects, how do we actually design them, how can we actually go after funding that makes sense, when we can be very we can think of just 1 to 3 priority areas, right? So that can really help you understand their products, it can or their projects, their organization, and so much more. And then when you start looking for grants, you're actually looking for the right grants, because you already understand their programs. And then that's so much easier for you to find grant funding that aligns, right? When you have this kind of as a part of your onboarding. And then as you grow it out, though, are you utilizing it for more than just writing grants? Some people then like to use AI at that point, because they have this beautiful master grant template, and it makes their grant writing even easier. It's all sorts of good. It's all sorts of good. But what if you can also repurpose it into other funding assets outside of grants? Ooh, we haven't had to do that for a long time, have we? Okay, what if you can easily turn it into a fundraising appeal letter, which you can. Website copy to get more individual donors. Presentation, like a slide deck to present to lawmakers or other corporations for corporate funding. Social media copy and direction for graphics. There's so many things that you can repurpose, press release, right? All the things that you can do with this. And what I love about utilizing it from this positioning of okay, now that I am the clearest person in your organization, besides the ED and the board, that understands the projects, or maybe more so, that understands your projects, and I understand what you need money for, and I even wrote the budgets potentially, and I understand how much is needed. But now you're going off and you're saying, oh, but then we have fundraising over here for this other project, and we have individual donors over here for this other project, and the nonprofits all over the place. 2026, guess the S word, streamlining. I also want your nonprofits to think about, because they're streamlining their programs. So I can write the master grant application and then repurpose that. So you're using the same priorities for donors, for fundraisers, for corporate solicitations. Then everything, and on your website and on your social, all the things, guess what? Your message is clear. It is clear. So it really brands the nonprofit very well. It makes what they're talking about, asking for money, not feel disjointed and weird. And it's just, you can repurpose a lot of this. So ask yourself, how can I help get results with my skills? You're writers. At the end of the day, yes, you're strategists, but you're also writers. Like, you're also doing this work. How can it work to serve the nonprofit more? Minimum valuable product, right? MVP. Adding in funding assets can still create a streamlined company with boundaries. So you can pick some items that you can do or learn easily that would add results. Remember, it needs to add results. It doesn't need to add fluff. It needs to add results for the clients. Remember, they're asking, how do I get diversified funding streams? Yeah, this is a way to do it. What if I don't need a grant writer? This is also helping to overcome objections. Well, I can also help you with your other funding things, right? What is easy and low hanging for you and for them? We also don't want to make a whole bunch of work for them if they're not doing fundraisers. Here's a fundraiser letter, right? Like, unless you want to engage and put that into your contracts, which some people are. But instead of them doing fundraisers for programs you never discuss, how can you help them focus on these 1 to 3 priorities in the MGA and then repurpose it for all their funding stream support? It also helps them. They don't have to pay 2 different people or do two different amounts of work. It makes it easier and more streamlined, right? So you could keep a worksheet of what each item is weighted against a foundation grant, and that can be helpful for you to understand. Some of you might just want to like add nothing in. Cool, I'm cool beans by that. Some of you, what, the cool beans, that's like a really early 90s term that I just slipped out of my mouth. I think so. You might guess my age. Okay, so think about it from that, you can say, okay, maybe I have done in the past fundraising appeal letters. Or maybe I would love to learn how to do monthly newsletters, right? To help them retain their donors. And I can repurpose a lot of what we're writing about in the master grant. That can be a part of an asset that I get paid for. And that actually brings in more money outside of grants, because maybe there's not a lot of grants right now for them, but I can still help them get funding. How cool is that? Like, it's not a heavy lift. Think of something that's not a heavy lift for you, that either you know how to do, you don't have to put everything in there, or B, one thing you want to learn. One thing you want to learn, okay? So what are people doing? Let's look at case studies. Students in our programs who are securing clients in 2025 have sold MGAs as standalone offers, added, and they haven't done all these things, but this is what some of the different things that they're doing. Added in monthly newsletters and social copy with their grant writing. Added in corporate solicitation with their grant writing. Created slide decks for their clients using an MGA. Swapped out a certain number of foundation grants if they write a federal or state grant. Like, that's very basic, but still a lot of, like, that can be a question, like, how do I do that, right? If they know the weight of each one, it's easier to do. All right, so that's what's happening. So let's lean into this. Lean into your services as MVPs again, minimum valuable products, with just maybe 1 to 3 other offers that are easily repurposed from your MGA. The lowest lift and the highest value for your clients, for your who. Like, you don't want to offer the same thing to everybody. If you're working with startup nonprofits, we're not going to offer them complex fundraising things that they have no idea that they're doing, right? They might not even have a website yet. They don't have an email list yet. Think of like what could be supportive. Maybe it's just repurposing copy for their bake sales and like those types of things, right? So that's what I want you to think about. It has to come from who your who is, okay? Understand the value of these so you can still create retainers with specific deliverables. All right, so stop only writing grants. I'm going to check the time. We have 14 minutes. All right, how are y'all feeling? Go ahead and put in the chat. Is this helpful yet? Was there a main takeaway that you're having? And I just said yes, helpful. Good, take a minute. What's a main takeaway from today? A main note. Taking everything away. Overwhelmed in a good way, says Alana. She's helping me with pivots I need to make, says Julie. My business is not me, says Sarah. I love it. I'm still a staff employee looking to branch out. You are inspiring, Jody. Start calling yourself a CEO, says Colleen. Yes. I really appreciate that this was a long session so we could dig into examples and all the content. Thank you, Carrie. I think I've been doing too much per client. Yeah, Lindsay. Yeah, cut it out. Sometimes we over deliver and then we're like, why did I do that? They don't even really need that. Put me in the mindset to prepare for 2026. Yep. Avni says, in starting my side business, I need to outline specific tasks that I can offer. Yeah. Deborah says, this is great. I'm feeling more energized and working on my language as a new grant strategist and CEO. Lena says, stop overpricing, stay within the bounds of your contract. Yes. Sarah says, thank you for the MVP idea and a fixed versus flexible offerings. Nija, main takeaway, there's hope and people are making it work. There are still grants and services that nonprofits will pay for, and they are doing it. They need you. Love this. Love this so much. Okay. So we have a little bit of time. We can do one workshopping activity that can help pivot you here. I've been considering, let me see. Penny says, I've been considering how to limit my offerings to the things I enjoy most, and this was useful to give me a boost of energy. Okay. We're just going to do a quick activity, and then I actually want to have time for Q&A, okay, before we go. So any thoughts? I know there were some questions. I want you guys to have more questions. I want to be able to answer and do as much coaching as I can today as well. Okay, yes, please. All right. So one of the offers, I don't want to like break this down too much, but as we covered today, we had the case studies, we had 4 steps, we had to be more neutral in your business, create boundaries, stop people pleasing. You guys all thought I was lay out so much strategy. I did, but it was a lot of things just to stop doing. So we talked about the takeaway. I also have an added, make sure you go to the swag bag because I have, like I said, I had an original, like really long workshopping session that I was doing with you. So I did make a worksheet. So definitely, or a workbook. So get that workbook because it's still good. We're going to do a little part of it, but then I wanted to change because I wanted you guys to know going into 2026 what's working. And now that I have the data, I wanted to give that to you. All right, so the workshopping I'm going to do is actually we're just going to work on our values. Why this is so important, and it's going to take a few minutes. You're going to do some brain dumping, is because your values, when you're thinking about what should I add to my business? Should I add? What is MVP? Who do I want to work with? How do I want to lean into this? It's all driven from your values, and sometimes values can feel like, man, those are just words. Remember, words are important. But I'm also going to show you how to use your values as an action in making neutral decisions. Okay, so let's go ahead and think about our top 10 values. I'm going to give you some examples again because I love giving examples, and here's like some of you guys like that. But do know, and then you're going to have a little time to work on it. And then we're gonna have Q&A. Note that these can change also year to year. You don't have to be married to them. Like I'm getting invited to a board right now. It's 5-year commitment. That's like longer than I have to commit to my values per year in my year. It's crazy. Okay. Before making decisions, examine your values, what this looks like. All right. I'm just going to give you an example. Here's an example about putting this into action. One of my values in my business is creativity. We like being creative. But what does that mean, Holly? I don't want you to just think of like a word chart either. I want you to really dive into what does this mean and then how do you put it into action? This is how you can actually go to my website and look at these things as well because I have more there. I just have one as an example if you're like, well, how do I do this exactly? So here's what we say. We first define the value. We believe in quality being important, but speed to market is equally important. For me, that's why I was like, I'm going to update this webinar. You saw typos. You saw things. You saw it. But speed to market is more important for me. And I'm like, what's going on today? What can I tell you about? Because I had to pick this title almost a year ago. Now I got to lean into more what's going on today, right? That's me. I'm speed to market. That's creativity for me. We look at creative ways to get students resources, feedbacks, and connections that they need when they need it. What creativity looks like and how it shows up in our program's business. Just because something has always been done a certain way doesn't mean it's always right. We are disruptors in this space because we are completely looking at the way that grant writers have been treated for decades and changing up the narrative and beliefs around this. We think creatively and provide language, like I just did for y'all today, and vocabulary to support folks as they change their pricing, confront urban myths about grant writing, etc. So do you see how this is a value, but now I'm showing what is it and how does it show up in my business? And you can use how I just described this. I wrote this a couple of years ago. You saw this showing up left and right in my, like in this presentation today, if you really think about it, right? Yes, it drives my decisions. Creativity drives my decisions on how I will handle something. Should I change that slide deck real quick? Absolutely, because it's one of my values, right? How this also shows up. Soon as the NSF list came out with banned words, guess what I did? Podcast about it. I made a worksheet about it. Are there typos in that too? Absolutely. Have I gone back to clean it up? Not yet. No, I'm busy. I'm doing other things. I'm moving moving on. But it's there and it's useful, and a lot of people have found a lot of benefit from it. On this side, and you guys can, it's free. Like you guys, it's like a free thing. Anyways, so you guys can check it out. You're like, what is that? And then another thing with the corporate solicitation package, oh, is not. This is another thing we developed in our programs this year. When I said adding different funding assets, looking at MVPs, some people are like, but right now my clients and with grants and blah, and I said, cool, like I've been working with nonprofits for more than 20 years. One of the things I love to do is corporate solicitation packages. I'm going to give you the assets and train you how to do it. You can add this to your services if you want. It's a service outside of grant writing. Cool. And a lot of times, what I love about corporate grant writing too, or corporate, not corporate grant writing, but corporate solicitation packages is and I was just interviewing somebody the other day, a nonprofit ED, and they said actually they had hired someone to do this, not even thinking about grants. But when they started getting or talking to the corporations, they would be like, "Oh, well, we don't have like room in our solicit or sponsorship packages this year, or whatnot. But we have a like a co or like an arm of ours is a foundation. Like a lot of corporations have foundations." And of course, those are usually closed, right? They don't accept solicitations, like all the things. But because you came in this way, we're giving you the back door. So they've been able to get a lot of corporate grant funding just because they went through this strategy, but then they got invited through the back end. Ooh, that's a good, take that note, y'all, take that note. So, but we do like getting other types of funding for nonprofits as well outside of grants. Right? This is something we pivoted in. Why did I make the decision to do it? I've done it, I have the experience, it works, it's an MVP, and creatively it leans into my values. Right? Boom. Easy decision. Also, we have defined a movement, 1 billion in grants, 30 million in students grant writing businesses by 2030. This is something I got very clear on this year. Before it was just like, yeah, we help people get money, we're tracking all that. Da-da. This year I was like, nah, the world needs some change. I need to help shake it up, and so do all of you. Like, let's make the word billionaire like a good thing right now for grants. Okay? How can we change the world for good right now when everything kind of feels like against us right now? No, 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 no. Nah, there's still money out there. We're going to raise a lot of money so we can help change. So even just, I want to lean into this, and that's my beacon now. That's my beacon for the next 5 years, right? Or 4 years coming up. Okay, cool, no problem. So every decision I'm making in my business, in my agency, in the business, like in my online programs that I run, I'm thinking, how do I do this? What is the MVP for this? How do I lean into this, right? Based on my values. Based on my values made that movement happen, okay? So another thing, your values is actions. Courage is a value I also have. Courage. How does courage show up? So here's an example. I will have courage to stand behind my rates and value, even if a nonprofit can't afford them. I will refer them or let them know to come back or create a template that is more in their price range, but I don't have to show up for. See how just having a value will tell you and direct you to what you can do in decisions in your business instead of just spinning out about them and waking up in the middle of the night not knowing how to handle that. Authenticity is a value of ours. I will be authentic and let clients that I know I am taking off 4 weeks for summer holiday with my kids, 2 weeks at winter. That is just our out of office policies, right? Easy, neutral decision making based on your values. All right, so here's some word examples, and I know we're coming up to the end of our time here, so I'm going to let you all do this because you have the worksheet on your own. I just wanted to give you some workshopping because I want to make sure I have time for questions. But you can also rank your, I want you to look at the workbook in the swag bag, rank your values, only put 10. 10 at tops, 10 tops. You can have fewer than that. Rank them from what you want. It's not one's more important. It's just what you want to lean in more in 2026. That's what I want you to think of the ranking. What do I want to lean in the most? How is that going to show up in my business? Okay. All right. So we are at the Q&A session. I know I like, okay, let me rush through that. Let me know questions. Any questions you have. There's some resources. You guys have a QR code there. You can check that out. I just have that up for you, but let me hear any questions. No swag bag. Oh, it's in there. If you're looking for a proofreader. Yeah, that's me. I'm like, I am imperfect. I always tell my students, I say, done is better than perfect, but yes, polishing is also great. Okay, let me see. It should be in there. It should be in the swag bag, and I'm sure that Naomi can help with that as well. I think Naomi can help with that as well because it should be in there. Okay. I've been considering how to limit my offerings to the things I most enjoy. Yeah, this was useful. Raw and real, perfect parallel. Yes. Do you have any suggestions on pricing ideas for a small side hustle? Just getting my feet wet. I already have work full time. I would be happy offering some very specific things, private foundations. Yeah, like I definitely think you need to understand, once again, go back to what is specific for the MVP for the nonprofit, what's really going to get them results, right? And then think about like when you're starting out, like you may have different price ranges and that's okay, but you can also think about like how can you get your feet wet through an internship that could be turned into a paid thing later on as well. If you want to look at it that way, or just selling like an MGA, like a lot of people that start out in our because we have a lot of newbies in our academy, they'll start out just selling the master grant application and getting good, really good at doing that, and then upselling from there on then writing the grants, right? Do you have any suggestions on pricing? Oh, that was the same one. Yeah, and exactly. Grant Pro says your experience is your education. Funding success, I don't know. I almost did stop basing yourself on funding success. And you can listen to that on my podcast. Super good. But yeah, there's definitely things you want to think about your who as well, what your geographic area is. Like there's all types of things to consider. In our programs, we have a value-based pricing method where we analyze all of that. It's easy then to figure that out. Okay, it's in on handouts, Colleen says. She found it. Yes, thank you. Nigel says, do you have any strategies for when it feels like the prospect list is just drying up? Yeah, sell your face off. I can be really spicy with Nigel. Okay. No, we want to think about like who else like what haven't you done? Like I know sometimes it feels like you've done everything. I do. I know. But think about what is the energy I'm bringing to that? And then also what else could I do? Have you been one of the things I'm looking at doing for my agency, again, I did this a long time ago. I was like, oh, I can go to Rev and Tax and see all the night who've filed their 990s. So I have all the nonprofit list and then just send out postcards, right? Very low hanging left. Send out a postcard with my services to the not in my area, like because I don't do it everywhere, but like in my community that makes sense for me. And here's my services. One of the things I've been leaning into as well is I say, okay, I have 4 openings right now. Now I have 2. I only have 2 more left until the new year. I will book out. Do you want to book? Like those are conversations I'm having too, Nigel. So it's kind of the energy you bring to it, and also just like have you really done everything? Or are you leaning in? Because sometimes when we start spinning out, what we'll do is we'll start like posting like 15 times on LinkedIn when we've never gotten a client on LinkedIn. Like, are you doing the things that have gotten you clients as well? So that's something to think about. Okay. Oh, thanks, Nick. Where would you send people who want to learn more about setting retainers? Um, Yeah, the GPA salary survey. It can, okay, here I love GPA, y'all. I love y'all. But for pricing freelancers, it's very small, right? They look a lot at grant writers, and I think they are leaning. I know Mike, I was talking to him, and he's leaning more into opening that more. Also, Rachel Waterman she does a survey every year that I mentioned before. So go to Grant Easy Management Software. You can find it, pricing survey, gems. And she actually only surveys freelance grant writers about pricing behaviors. And it's very interesting, like how much you're not billing, like all of the things. That's also a great resource. And also my podcast and my YouTube channel, I talk a lot about pricing because that's one of the, like, look at all the questions we're getting about pricing. It's always going back to pricing, right? A lot of it. Yeah, we talk a lot about it. I love talking about money because it breaks down the stereotype of talking about money. What's woman? We don't talk about money enough, okay? We don't talk about money. Deborah says, or Deshanta says, this session came at a perfect time, struggling with pricing. Yeah, very cool. Okay, I think Naomi's going to kick us out. Naomi, are we good?
You guys are good for about 5 more minutes in the room.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let me just see if there's any more questions. Andrea says, I've vastly underestimated retainer rates for services that were newly added. It hurts when that happens, but there are always huge lessons learned. Yeah, a lot of it's walking. You know what? Nothing you've ever done or thought or anything has been wrong. I know I've been yelling a lot today, but none of it's wrong. It's all a part of learning. And that's why I would just want to shake you all up to be like, but there's a different way, right? There's a different way. We don't have to continue in that cycle either. We can like learn from it, or just like a lot of it's valid from where you were in your life. When I first started my business, I was vastly undercharging, but everything was a win to me because I needed to pay the bills, right? So, and I learned a lot through that. That's how I can give you a corporate solicitation package because I was saying yes to everything. That's how why I know how to run a fundraiser. That's how I know how, right? And not that I want to do any of that anymore, but can I help with that? If that came in and that was like the mainstream of income right now, could I help with that and know how to price that better? Absolutely. Nothing is wrong of how you felt either. I also just want to legitimize that completely. We are all coming at this from different backgrounds. We all have our own feelings. Nothing's wrong. It's usually valid on how you feel. But I just want you to know that if that if that feeling is overwhelming or succumbing or just like there's despair there, I want you to know that we can also reframe our feelings by reframing our thoughts, right? That's it. That's it. Okay, so any tips for letting go of a client you no longer want to work with? Yeah. Yep. Grant Pro is good. I like that. I like Grant Pro. All right. Yeah, 30. What we like to do, as you mentioned, like how long are your contracts? I usually do realize, or I like to lean into 12-month contracts. I will do 6-month contracts as well, but I like a 30-day out as well. That's what I always recommend. I offer a 30-day out from either side. From either side. One person in our mentorship the other day, she was like, she wanted to get out of a situation, and I said, "Hey, how long is it? Like, what is the exit clause?" And she goes, "1 day." I said, "Well, then because she's like, but I feel like I need to give." I said, "What do you want to close up? What do you want to wrap up?" That's all you have to say. And I said, lean into that then and say, just to let you know, there's a 1 day policy termination clause. However, I'm going to give you another 2 weeks and I'm going to close up X amount of work. That's it. It was so neutral. It was so neutral, right? So do lean into that. I do like a 30-day, even for people I hire in my business. I want 30 days so I can replace them if they want to leave, or if I need to let them go, I have 30 days to find somebody new, and vice versa. Vice versa. I think that's fair. Okay. I think we're at the end of our time, but everyone's asking about the grant management. Can you repeat? Rachel Waterman, Grant Easy Management Software. You can probably just Google that. Grant Easy Management is the name of the website. Thank you. Penny says, thank you. Found your website 6 years ago. Amazing. Okay. All right. So I'm at the end of my time. Thank you for everyone for coming. I really appreciate you all. I hope you walked away with something, even if it's one tip. I hope this hour and a half, this will help change your business and change your decisions to make them neutral, so you can help more nonprofits, but also be a sustainable business. That is my desire. And I really enjoyed the time together with you today, and I hope to reconnect soon. So you guys know where to find me. I would love you guys to reach out and be like, hey, I was at your GPA webinar. Definitely you can contact me. That would be great.